We have a
Only
special guest today. Jay Caspian King from the New Yorker magazine is joining us, and
and
we're
the Time
gonna
to Say Goodbye
and the
podcast.
Time to Say Goodbye podcast, of course. Can't forget
Um,
about it.
yeah. Welcome,
So
Jay.
yeah, welcome, Jay. We're gonna talk about a couple things today. We have an agenda, and I think we're gonna start with the fucking Rob Reiner post from Trump, which was the most deranged thing I think he's ever. I don't know. It's like, he said a lot of crazy things, but that's really up there in my opinion. I don't know if you guys thought. I was
What
like,
else?
yeah.
What else what else kind of compares? Like, he usually has we all know he's like deranged in all these kinds of ways, but he usually kind of has a sense of propriety and boundaries. Is that a crazy thing to say?
No, he'll put one bitchy comment that like ruins an otherwise
Yeah.
nice thing. He would be like, well, he didn't like me very much. And you're like, that's not called for.
Yeah,
But
what you would
like,
what you expected here was like you fully expected a Trump like, I loved when Harry met Sally. Even though I loved when Harry met Sally, Rob Reiner was
well,
never
wasn't
very nice
very
to
nice
me.
to me. Wasn't
Yeah,
very nice to me.
exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, that was he was like, I always loved his movies, even though he wasn't very nice. That would be the normal. But this was like,
Yeah.
I looked at it, I read it like quickly because it was like dropped in a group chat. And then I was like, oh, well, par for the course. And then I looked at it again and I was like, whoa, that is way worse than I thought it was going to be. Because it basically implies that like he was killed in one way or another, because it's almost nonsensical stream of consciousness. In one way or another, it implies that he was killed because he was a critic of Trump. It's just like
Yeah.
it's truly like his most Idi Amin moment in a long time. Yeah, but I was just taken aback, and I think it's kind of like left Twitter and Truth Social. It's kind of like achieves escape velocity, because I think Rob Reiner was really beloved, and it's just especially crazy. And
Well, the other thing that was happening was there was like a whole 12 hours where a bunch of the like right wing influencer accounts on Twitter were like, look at how the right is being so, generous and charitable to this. The
yeah,
left was celebrating Charlie Kirk's death or whatever. And then
yeah.
just like Trump barged in the room and was like, fuck this guy. They probably
Like,
got
I'm
killed
glad
this
he's
week.
dead. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
Yeah.
was. I think it was, at least in terms of individual, is the worst thing he said about an individual um
Yeah.
in like
He's
10 years.
he's slandered
Really
entire
ridiculous.
races before, but as an
Yeah, yeah. So
individual.
like the Haitians and the Somalis, for example, have gotten it as bad, but that's like a broad category of people that he's just being a bigot about. But
Right.
I don't think anything has been like I it's been a while since it's been like, whoa.
Yeah,
Where
exactly.
he does something, you're like, wow. That was
Yeah, you're
fucking
like, damn,
crazy.
that was
And
really. Yeah.
he sort of charted out a new frontier here in terms
Yeah.
of being horrific about somebody who died. Now, like, look, it's like fine. He can say like it's not unexpected, I guess, or nothing should be unexpected. And I don't think that ultimately it's gonna have some sort of big, you know, electoral outcome or whatever. But it was just weird in that it's just like, well, what was the point of this outside of like you just not being able to control your emotions? And also like who typed this for you? Do you think that he was just in his bedroom or something like that and he's just like typing this out and then he just hit send? Because I don't have a sense that that's exactly how his social media stuff works on Twitter.
Yeah, the way it's written kind of suggested to me, because I looked at it again this morning when I was writing about it, and I was like, this looks like he had like his intern do it, and like it almost it did seem like it was written by him, but something about like the capitalization, punctuation about it, I was like, someone typed this for him. This is not Jeffrey Epstein on his iPad level of hacking things out.
Yeah, like
Doesn't Dan I think Dan Scavino writes most of his posts.
Oh,
Like,
really?
I think well, I don't know, like, I think it's, like, Scavino and and maybe Stephen Chung too. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think they like write them. It's like it's the as to they do the like as told to version or whatever. But I always
Right.
thought that like Scavino is really he's like the guy who's taking who's the name of the guy who actually did most of the King James Bible. That's how I always think of him as. He's like
Oh, what's
he's
his
the
name?
yeah.
Fucking-
This is not the podcast where we're
Okay.
going
James,
to talk before.
not James.
but the I think I kind of disagree with Jay about the political upshot of this. Like, he's not doing, like, they're not doing well, and I don't think this helps. Like, I don't know if does it cause the decline to go? I mean, some people are speculating that he's doing this speech tomorrow. I mean, some people think he's going to say we're bombing Venezuela now, but other people think he's going to announce checks because they're in such dire straits. Like
Announce like just they're going to send out
Like,
checks.
send out
money out to
send money out like as a rebate from tariffs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I think that's a possibility because they're really, really circling the drain. And this doesn't help. It was just like a weird.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is part of the thing here is what we're saying is it's like it's not even quite so much the total offensiveness of it and like fucked upness of doing this about a guy who just got killed probably by his own son. Because that's in some ways baked into Trump. It's that like the line that we were talking about before that used to sort of exist that he would be able to skate against, that he would be able to like skate around, I suppose, and be like, they're like, well, he hated me, but I loved Spinal Tap or whatever. He doesn't seem to know where that line is anymore, which feels reflective of the general like Trump dementia.
It's the end of Raging Bull. It's the end of Raging Bull. He's trying to do his act, but he can't do his act anymore because he's too messed up. So he starts getting aggressive with the audience and saying off-color things. He's terminal Scorsese movie. The fucking
it's true. It's like hour 2 hours 30 minutes in.
The montage is about to start.
Like, okay, I get it.
Buddy. Eric Clapton is about to come on. The bodies are going to be discovered. We're at that point of Trumpism. Like,
oh my god,
yeah. So I think it's just not. I don't think it's going to do them any favors politically, and like and also the people willing to defend. I mean, like, and this is kind of going to bring me to the next thing, perhaps. Like who's willing? Like, it's just the amount of like soul selling you have to do to continue to be a surrogate for him. Like, they're all, as you were saying, Max, they were all being like, you see, we're not doing what you did for Charlie Kirk, you bastards. We're nice. And then he does that, and then they turn around. They have to turn around and make asses out of themselves because then they have to be like, who cares? We love that he's like a total piece of shit. And it's like
they kind of didn't do that.
They
right?
did that.
Like,
They did. I swear. No. Posobiec did that. Some of them did that.
Oh yeah.
The truly guy, crazy. Yeah.
I feel like I at least saw. I think maybe it was Tommy Tuberville or somebody like that. Maybe it wasn't Tuberville, but it was one. It might have been Kennedy. It's one of the senators said, I feel like he should have said nothing, right? And that was like the closest you'll get from some sort of departure from Trump.
Yeah.
And in that way, maybe, I guess that if you're talking about like a permission structure or whatever people call it now, right? Like where there's, is that the right word? I don't even know what I see that phrase all the time, permission structure. I don't know what it means. Maybe that's reflective of my general personality or something like that.
I don't know what permission.
You've never needed one in your life.
I don't need a structure.
I fucking do it. But like maybe they now feel like they can actually oppose him a little bit more, and that once you do it one time, it feels so good that you'll do it again.
Yeah, he's politically weak.
Yeah, and you try and think about the times like maybe like during the first term, would anyone have done that if Trump had tweeted that, if Rob Reiner had that? No, they would have all just gotten in line and been like, when Harry Met Sally is vulgar, it shouldn't be taught in schools, or they would have done something like that, right? Like,
what was weird?
Weird to me. Orgasm over a Jewish sandwich or something like that,
right? Well, speaking of which, Fuentes was like, he was like, he's all over the place and always has a well-delivered message, even if it doesn't always add up to a coherent whole. But he was like complaining about how horrible Trump was. And I'm like, and being like, it was terrible. Rob Reiner was beloved figure. No one should ever say this. And I'm like, dude, you're an anti-Semite. Rob Reiner was as Jewish as they come. Like, but he's using it. But it's interesting that he's using the opportunity to hit Trump because he just feels like they've got to jettison this guy, that he's useless to them. and like a lot of them are now doing that. I mean, like someone else was doing the whole like Curtis Yarvin thing, which was like, Cernovich was already being like, this is horrible, we didn't get what we wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Marjorie
yeah.
Taylor Greene too, didn't she put out a post about how much she enjoyed Rob Reiner's films, like A Few Good Manners? It really is amazing how broad his like during that
I know for
run
a
that everyone
dude who's
talked about
like
how broad
a real
ranging
like
it is. Like if you're like a military rules guy, you can be into him, you know, if you're like there's just so many movies that you could that people actually like. It just seems kind of incredible. And then of course everyone just likes Princess Bride, and so
yeah
it almost makes him unassailable, but
Well,
yeah
it gives
yeah.
you cover. Like even if you're like a communist or something, you can be like, well,
Be like, you know what? I just really love it. Actually, I don't want to over intellectualize it because there were a lot of takes that were trying to like be takes about this. And everyone was like, look, everyone just likes Rob Reiner movies. But
yeah.
there is something to it, I think, that people have made this point, which speaks to what you're saying, Jay, is that he represents almost a consensus period and of like being like, oh, there's a certain good naturedness, a certain decency that we associate with him and his movies. It was a time of more of a monoculture, and people probably have a specific nostalgia associated with his films because of that. So then being like shitty about it just kind of is like irritating because everyone hates the present age and is like constantly looking back to stuff from that period as being like, oh, that was a much nicer, more civil time. And he's a perfect figure for that. He's a genial, comedian, not particularly edgy, just kind of lovely guy who made
yeah
movies that people remember from their childhood. And, it's probably just like everyone's just kind of sick of all this.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
he made very classic Hollywood when we think about, like, Hollywood movies, like,
yeah.
good Hollywood movies, 4 quadrant movies that
Except for A
everybody
Few
sort of
Good Men.
loves.
That movie sucks, dude. I'm sorry. Okay, no, no. Oh, it's
How does that
there's
movie
there's no dramatic center of the movie. There's no
What are
dramatic
you
center. There's no
talking about? The
crisis.
dramatic center in the movie is when they're like at the end.
Yeah,
I have to watch it again because we're doing it for the podcast. So I will give it another chance. But I
it's
will give
got
it
I mean, it
another
has,
First
like,
of
chance
the
all, how
most
have you not done it already for the podcast? I would think that
because
for your
it's
a
not.
podcast about like political movies from the
Yeah,
1980s, 1990s, it would
it's
be
a
like
it's
the
a
we were
first
waiting
crucial.
thing.
for this to happen before we
Yeah.
did it.
And the other thing I was gonna say is like, don't underestimate. I mean, he was an actor too. Like
Yeah,
we don't remember that much because we were of an age where we saw his movies, but like he was a famous
yeah,
TV actor too. He's
yeah.
beloved for all of his
Oh,
roles,
All in the
his film
Family.
roles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay,
yeah, I
let's
mean,
talk. Wait.
no, go ahead.
No. Well, I unless you guys have anything more to say about that, I thought we
No, I mean,
on to the
this
next
is one of
topic.
those things. It's like, what do you say? Like, this is really
Y-
fucked up thing happened, and
Yeah.
then Trump said something made it even more fucked up somehow.
Yeah, but the other thing that I found very disturbing this week, yesterday at Twitter was, and it's related in some sense. I mean, it's all related. This guy at Brown, this thing at Brown. Obviously, there's this horrible shooting at Brown. The shooter is still at large, and then they like on right wing Twitter went bananas over this guy who they accused, a Palestinian student, I think, grad student or undergrad. I think it was a grad student, who they accused of being the shooter. No evidence. They were using like gait analysis, and he was like kind of the uh, same,
Wait.
weight, height, something like that. So same build, and like this guy starts to get, and then Brown starts to take his stuff off the internet. Right now, from my perspective, the natural inference there if is they this guy's getting kind of doxxed and is not a real suspect, and they're trying to do anything they can to like lower his profile. But what these fucking people did on Twitter was like, "Oh, Brown is trying to do a cover up." Like the lack of reasoning power or the intentional motivated lack of reasoning in that is incredible. Are they that stupid that they think Brown was like, "Oh no,
Yes.
we have to pretend
Yes, I think they're that stupid. I mean, I don't there's no other explanation for it, right? Unless they kind of think they might be right. Like they wouldn't do this being like, look, we're probably wrong about this, but we've got this gait analysis where this guy is kind of turning his his ankle. And it reminds me of when somebody like gets hurt in the NBA and you have all these doctors like weighing in and being like, "Oh my God, look, you like that's clearly like a
That his Achilles
whatever."
is snapped. Yeah.
Right. It's like that's not an Achilles tear. That's just a high ankle sprain because you can. It felt like that, right? But like they're even more unqualified than the Twitter doctors are. Some of the Twitter doctors actually somewhat qualified, like, but they had to think that this was true. Like, why else would they do it? Like, just to be wrong eventually? Like, it's that they in
I
their
think
mind they're so deranged that they feel like, and they're so addicted to the internet. And it's something I wrote about like years ago during the Boston Marathon bombing, right? Which
right.
was that like this information starts to catch fire, and then people get like little bits of information. And like during the Boston Marathon bombing, it was like somebody was listening to a police scanner somewhere, and they thought they heard a name, and then this poor kid,
Right.
who had killed himself earlier, who actually just consequently went to Brown, right? Was a Brown student, got his name thrown out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even then, there was more like that narrative was actually, it probably had more legs to it than this one. This one was literally like, why would they delete the pages? And you're like, well, can you give me the scenario why they would delete the pages
Yeah,
if he
exactly.
was that guy? They're
Yeah,
like,
they're like,
yeah.
oh no, we have to pretend he didn't go here, like as if they would ever get away with that.
Somebody was
Yeah.
claiming that Brown had taken down its entire Middle Eastern Studies program page. Like somebody had just they'd
They're like,
gotten
"We're
4 or
pretending."
whatever. And they're like, it's not there anymore. Like Brown was pretending it didn't have a Middle East. Like Brown would go
They're
about being
pretending
like,
they
"Oh,
don't
Yeah.
have
Look,
any Muslims.
if we get rid of
never studied
this
Palestine."
page that
Yeah,
9
they'll
people have
never
seen and the existence of the page, then maybe they won't realize that it was one of our students who did the shooting on our campus. You know, like
It's
what the
unbelievable.
fuck? Like
It's
what
They
in the
do
world are you talking about?
I think
I
some
thought
of it is malicious though, Jay. I think that I mean I agree with you. I think some people are stupid and believed it, and you can kind of get that in some of the posts being like, we found him. But I think like and this is scary, there are legitimate bad faith actors who didn't care whether he did it or not. And were
we're happy to
we're just
egg it
preying
on.
on the situation.
I mean, I think
Yeah.
what I would say there's like two things that I think are connected. Is one is that like I think obviously people went looking for a Muslim student. Like I think that is that
What
there's
the
like a
fuck does
motivated
that
reason.
mean? This kind
Like,
of sorry, go ahead.
like the ignore the comments.
All right.
Yeah,
There's
I want
3,000
this
people
straight
in here.
to. You should do a live every week where you just interact with the commenters.
I don't
Yeah.
understand. We have
So.
there's like 3,000 people in
can-
here, which is
All right,
way
all right,
bigger
all
than
right. I'm
usual.
not gonna.
Yeah, I know. Why
Like
are there
half
so
the
many
people.
people in
I
here?
didn't. I don't know why I said
Asking about
4,000 because
quantum
maybe
learning.
it's
I have no
three
idea why. I
the
have
three
no
of
idea
us
where all these people
together.
are.
Isn't it usually
Anyway,
like
Fernando,
300
fuck
people?
off.
It's more like
Fernando, if you don't
300.
like it, go away. You don't have to be here, brother.
Yeah.
But I think people were there was a sense where people they were looking for a Muslim shooter. I mean, Gans, we've talked about this. I think last week. The sort of the sudden like jump on Islamophobia, on like anti-Muslim attitudes that the right seems to be doing as a kind of way to paper over the anti-Semitism stuff that had been dominating in the sort of Fuentes era. And so they chase after they look for a Muslim kid, they find this Muslim kid, motivated reasoning. But the other thing that happens, and Jay, I was thinking of the Boston Marathon bombing too, and so much of that happened on Reddit, and it was so obvious that people were, I think they really believed it, but there's also like, they're incentivized to believe it because if you can comment theories, you're going to get upvoted. Like that's the Reddit thing. If you have some crazy new theory that's even vaguely convincing, people are going to upvote you. It's so easy. I mean, even as a reporter who's working on a breaking news situation, it is easy to get to like have sort of blinders on and just kind of the momentum of the story and the rumors start to take over. And the reason it's like nice to be part of a big news organization when stuff like that is happening is you've got a bunch of people who are able to check you and be like, hold on, has that been fully reported out? If you're just a guy suddenly getting all this attention online because you say that this poor Brown student did the shooting, like I think you start to believe it because that's, it's sort of like you're already stupid enough to be doing this in the first place. And then you're stupid enough to feel like, oh, it's so great that I'm getting all these retweets for just making shit up.
Or you
Let
feel
me
like a
just continue to
hero.
make shit up. Yeah. Exactly. And it's terrible. It's now happening again with this nuclear physicist who got shot. This MIT guy who got shot. Where there's all these, this is even close to the Reddit and like the NBA doctor people, because it's all these guys being like, this is definitely like a political assassination. It's like, guys who have anime avatars being like, no, is without a doubt, like this is the beginning of a new Cold War or whatever. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Yeah. Where did you come from that this is what you think it is? I mean, whatever. I don't want to say what I think it is, but I don't think it has anything to do with like foreign you
Wait,
know,
what do you think it is?
I just think it's a sex thing. I mean, I feel bad. The guy's dead. I don't know. There's like 90% of the time, there's like some kind of, something else. It's not political. It's not whatever. It's a relationship gone wrong in some way or another, like, I don't
I
think.
thought it was an assassination because I'm a moron.
Well, I
my,
wouldn't say that
my
about
first,
mine.
apparently the reason why we have so many followers I've gathered from, listeners, I've gathered that they sent a platform-wide push notification, which I'm very sorry, guys. This was not, we thought we were going to get 500 people. And second of all, they said that we were going to be talking about the Venezuela invasion, which we didn't plan for, but we could make something up as we go along. So
Oh
if you're
yeah.
here to talk about Venezuela, I can give you a badly informed opinion about what's going on with the US government in Venezuela. But
Yeah.
anyway, but we have an agenda, so let's not stray from our agenda, right?
Yeah,
I-
don't let the audience.
Yeah, just
Don't
wait
let
till
the
we start
audience
talking about
dictate
white
what
men
we
in
do,
publishing.
please.
That's what
Okay,
you
yeah.
really want to hear
No,
about.
I'm not going to pay attention. I got to not be distracted. There's so many people, I'm getting nervous. Um, yeah, anyway, yeah, the conditions of discourse and information are so deranged, and it's just I wrote it. It's just kind of like watching madness unfold at all times, and then just the inability. Like the Trump thing is just his absolute insanity on display, and then just the incapacity. Just like watching millions, thousands of people, just like the incapacity to basically reason or even just wait for like information, actual information. They're just all the reasoning is so incredibly motivated by like an emotional need. So that was sort of thing. But I mean, like, yeah, I just don't, it's both like very funny and also scary, to observe happening. That's
Yeah.
just my takeaway from it. It's like, and I use the metaphor, or not a metaphor. I use the word horror because, like the horror genre, it is like both combination of disgust, fear, because you're like, this is truly unbelievably bad, and there's something about it that approaches the absurd. Like, when you watch a horror movie and it's so over the top gory or ridiculous that you kind of have to laugh. Like, this is the confluence of factors that, like, you kind of observe these things and you're like, this is this monster with multiple heads just like it burst out of somebody's stomach, and you're like, that's gross and very scary, but it's also like I can't help but sort of crack up about it.
I mean, one thing that occurs, like this is something very similar happened after the Charlie Kirk assassination, though. Like part of the thing there was that they found the kid quite quickly. I mean, and not thanks to the FBI, but thanks to the kid's dad, or the alleged shooter. That like there's a sort of like this is Trump's world where the FBI is too incompetent to catch anybody. The director is, flying a private plane to go see his girlfriend at concerts or whatever. There's like this incompetent podcast host in charge of it. So there's a total vacuum of like institutional knowledge, like sort of updates or information, accompanied by the fact that the news media is like crashing out. Meanwhile, Twitter has become the place that used to be the sort of the premier like breaking news and rumor site has become a complete cesspool. There's almost no institutional actors on there at all, let alone like moderation, like whatever else. So the kind of it's like it works in this nice flywheel where you're sort of like FBI is completely abdicated its responsibility. So who's going to step up? But the influencers and whoever else is on Twitter.
Well, the influencers run the FBI. It's Dan Bongino and Cash Patel. There's a complete melding of I've made this point before, like the complete melding of the propaganda wing and the actual administration. And also to the point about Twitter, my theory about this is, going way back to 2022 and the purchase was about to happen, was this destruction of the conditions of discourse. I think was deliberate in a certain way. It's to make it very difficult to get accurate information, which is a kind of anti-democratic tool. And I'm not going to say the replacements have really supplanted that. So yeah, I always was like, yeah, dude, they want to create a totally anarchic information environment because it makes it very difficult to level investigation and criticism against powerful people. Like it's this whole thing. It seems populist, it seems democratic, but it's actually just creating conditions where it makes it impossible for people to get good information and to organize themselves politically, or not impossible, but makes it difficult. It makes an extremely difficult situation. So
Yeah, I mean, and it is insane that they have not caught
yeah,
this fucking guy yet. It makes me. I
yeah.
mean,
Well,
it's absolutely crazy.
did you
Yeah,
see the?
I mean, that's the biggest thing, right? Is that it's always in these spaces during the manhunts where this type of stuff blossoms up. That's what happened during the Boston Marathon bombing, obviously. It was like during the time where Jahar Tsarnaev was like in the boat in that dude's backyard, and they were sort of storming around. And so, I mean, the question that I had, and Max, maybe this for you, is just like, and I've been thinking about myself, is just like, is it actually worse than it was back during the Boston Marathon bombing, right? Because I would argue that we had this period after the Boston Marathon bombing, you know, where things got a little bit better, where places
Yeah.
like Reddit put in some sort of safeguards, and you can argue, I would always argue that those safeguards are bad because, I'm like a stupid civil libertarian First Amendment person,
Yeah.
whatever, you know? Like, it did make it better. Journalists were way more careful about this type of
Yeah.
stuff. The problem with the Boston Marathon bombing was that it was like people like us who were tweeting shit like, "Oh shit, the scanner said this,"
Yeah.
Here's his it was the problem was it
Yeah.
was like blue checks, what was known
Right.
as blue checks at the time. And then people were way more careful. Like some people got fired for doing stupid shit like that. And then Twitter put in this entire infrastructure, which you can argue is good or bad, that was like about, putting warnings on stuff and making sure
Right.
that this type of stuff didn't break containment too much. But it was also that, like, I think that we had a period where like this type of like there weren't that many manhunts going around, right? And now it's like
Yeah.
now we seem to have a lot of manhunts, right? Like it's like
Yeah.
nobody knows who did anything. Like the Charlie, and then we have a huge conspiratorial. The thing that has changed is that I think back then we didn't have the conspiratorial media apparatus that we have now, and
Yeah.
that's what really is the problem, right? It's not that; it's that people are like speculating on who might
There's
have
money
done
in it.
this.
There's
Well,
literal
this is
money
like
in
the other.
you have like the second somebody gets killed, you have Candace Owens doing a show about how it was like, the three main suspects or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And then you have like the other people. Like it just becomes immediately about a discourse around what the craziest fucking person has said, right? Like so here,
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
as an example, right? Like the story isn't about the fact that like the Providence police and the FBI are totally irrelevant
Yeah.
or not irrelevant, incompetent,
Yeah.
apparently. Or why aren't there cameras, right? Which is actually maybe a somewhat conspiratorial question that I have. It's just like, where are the fucking cameras? Like, you guys don't have cameras, right?
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know. Somebody in the comments pointed out Luigi too, right?
Yeah.
Luigi also becomes this part of it, but like we have the conspiratorial media apparatus that is pumping every single one of these manhunts now. And it's just way out of control. In my opinion, I think it's way worse than it was during the Boston
Yeah.
Marathon bombing. Because
Yeah.
during
I
the
mean,
Boston Marathon bombing, it was just like a bunch of nerds like us, like typing shit into Twitter, right? And
yeah.
like
Boston Marathon
you
bombing
can
was really
control
embarrassing.
us.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
But
you can just
it
be
was
like,
like,
Jay, you're fired if you keep tweeting this stupid shit out.
Well, the media, I mean, like you can say, obviously, there was a close relationship between, politics and the media in the previous age, but as I was mentioning, like the closeness of these Twitter influencers, and the actual administration government of the country is remarkable. Laura Loomer, a lunatic clown who looks like someone you would walk away from on the subway, you know, is a constant visitor to the White House
yeah.
so you have, and yeah, Dan Bongino is helping run the FBI. He might quit because it's too hard for him because he's a fucking moron. But like, and you have Kash Patel who had some government job, but basically made a name for himself by being a loudmouth on the
Podcaster.
internet,
Yeah.
a podcast. So you have like this melding of these things, and then it just becomes, also there's this strange echo chamber, like on the right wing, on right wing social media and media in general, where like they have preoccupations where, like, did you guys, I mean, excuse me if this reveals me as ignorant, but did you guys know what Tren de Aragua was before a few months ago? And I learned that was just a absolute obsession of, not just online, but like Murdoch media. Like it was
Yeah.
a thing that was in the New York Post and so on and so forth.
Right.
And then it's not even like, oh, the temptation is to be conspiratorial and say, oh, they're dictating the conditions of discourse. It's like, no, they live in just the same way people were like, oh, the libs live in an echo chamber and they think that like everybody's wokeness. They live in an echo chamber they've created. They live
Yeah.
they've created. That's also a good point. But they've created where these industry, and yes, and as someone pointed out, some of these things do have to do with like the coalitional forces in the GOP that
Yeah.
lobby and yeah. So
The one thing I would add, there's the I think something, because I agree with you, Jay, that there's like it is worse than it was, and a lot of that is there's no self-correction mechanism, and you really don't want to give journalists any credit, you don't want to give newspapers any credit at all, but there is like some level of both cultural and like financial discipline and self-correction at play and stuff. Like if you turn around and you realize that after the Boston bombing that you just posting on Twitter things you heard on the scanner turns into hundreds of thousands of people knowing something that hasn't really been vetted, that you haven't really double checked, that the sort of layers of context have been lost. Both the institution itself and a lot of the individual journalists think to themselves, I think I maybe need to think harder about how I'm going to tweet in the future or whatever. There's a sense of responsibility gets learned. That's not guaranteed, but it's certainly true in the context of that particular one. No such self-correction mechanism exists for the kinds of people we're talking about, partly because their sense of responsibility, their sense of what they do, their business model are all very different. Like you're not like reliable information is not your source of income. It's fomenting rage and whatever else. The other thing though is that like the actual environment of Twitter is very different. I wrote a couple maybe last year in the midst of a hurricane how much Twitter is just really not a good place for breaking news anymore. Yeah. And it used to be very much the case that you'd go like in the midst of a natural disaster, a recent mass shooting, a recent bombing, election night, whatever, and you would get fairly close to up to the minute, updates about things that were going on, both from, professional national journalists, from professional reporters in whatever location, also from sort of just random passersby and witnesses or whatever. And that was back when there was even there was both like a real chronological feed, but also a sort of non-chronological feed that was partly algorithmic, but still was relatively recent stuff because news was the object around which Twitter tried to structure itself. Now that Twitter has been TikTokified and you have an FYP that pays really no attention at all to like time of post or whatever, or very little. You just show up and you're just immediately plunged into a stew of whatever else is going on. It's not really about like, oh, let me give you more and new information and updates. It's like, come join our ARG, like come join the like weird game we're playing, the thing we're doing, which just again like incentivizes this kind of thing. Like you don't need
they're against the very concept of time moving forward.
Okay, but can I put out can I point out a rejoinder to that, or like a counter example?
Sure, please.
Which is that like for sports it still kind of works, right? Like the thing that's the most up to date minute to minute group watching thing possible. So like last night, for example, during the finals of the NBA Cup, like it felt kind of like old Twitter where everyone is like reacting to plays and telling jokes and stuff like that. But that's the only place where that matters. And that's because like outside of like, some very funny accounts, you don't really have like the conspiratorial part of it, and you don't have 15 different side conversations. I get.
And there's still like a real like culture, like people who listen to, watch, and talk about sports are all still on Twitter. So you have like a big, broad group of people.
It can drown. It's big enough to drown out the total madness that swamps every other topic, I think. Can I ask a stupid question? I'm a pretty casual basketball fan, but I've been following the sport, and I'm not really familiar with the NBA Cup.
The NBA Emirates Cup. You have to
the NBA Emirates Cup. What is that? Why is that a thing? Like, it seems like, was this just invented?
Yeah, it was invented as a way to like take money from the Emirates.
As a way to help the Knicks actually win something?
Like a lot of older men, American men, Adam Silver has been soccer pilled over the last like 10 years. And so he's trying to like build an FA Cup into the NBA.
They're like, why can't we do this? And it's like, but the FA Cup is driven entirely by the fact that like tiny little teams from all over the place.
Yeah, that's cool.
Win.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you have like a team with you go and that you have a team like Manchester United or Arsenal or something, and they have to go play in a 2,000 um
Right.
person stadium that's like literally in someone's backyard, right? Like you
Yeah.
like it's like you have to like walk through two people's houses to get to it. Um and obviously one of the things that I actually saw, and we don't have to talk about this, but one of the things that I saw that was a plan that I thought was quite smart is that in the future, instead of right now for the NBA Cup, they change the floors and they make the floors look kind of lame, in my opinion, but like sometimes kind of cool, but it's like a distinctive look. And what they're gonna do instead is they're gonna start playing it in like college
Mm,
college auditoriums or college stadiums, which I think is cool. Like
yeah.
if they I mean, I hate Duke more than anything in the world, but I will say that if there's an NBA game at
Yeah.
Cameron, it'd be pretty cool, you
Yeah,
know?
that'd be
I think
Yeah.
it would be cool. Like if they did it in like some small gym in Indiana or Philadelphia, like at like St. Bonaventures or a place or St. Joseph's, one of these places that has a long basketball history. And
yeah.
the crowd is a bunch of old Italian men like talking about the time when they saw Bobby Hurley. Like, I remember when Bobby Hurley used to practice here in high school. It was a wonderful, like, that would be cool, you know? I
Yeah,
think it'd be
that would
cool.
be cool. There's I
So,
but
so I
it
think
like
that, like, I used to be very anti Emirates Cup, and I obviously have some issues given what's happening in Sudan and everything like that with really like going totally
Oh
crazy.
yeah.
Like,
The
yeah,
United Arab Emirates is
but
awesome. Great.
at the same time, I think that it's improving. Like last night's game was amazing.
yeah.
Yeah. I watched the end of it at a bar and it was good.
Yeah, all the Spurs games have been I mean, it's like it's been a nice showcase for Wemby too, like this particular tournament, like getting him like in games that he's invested in and that we're invested in. I was gonna say, Jay, the other thing that reminds me is the other reason this isn't working is because the FA Cup of basketball is March Madness. And it's not, I mean, I know it's a separate league or whatever, but like we have a single elimination, really fun tournament with a bunch of bad teams, but they're still playing
Yeah.
at
'Cause
the
someone can make
absolute
a
top
big
of their
run. Yeah.
yeah, and you get 15 seeds making crazy runs or whatever. And so it's really hard to recreate that in basketball.
I know.
And you know,
I'm like, my general take about this is like, I'm just tired of this, like, Europhilia amongst American sports fans. It's like, we do it the best. Like, what?
You guys are both soccer fans.
I know I like soccer, but it's mostly just because my daughter and I feel like I need to learn what the game is while she plays. But like the rest of it is just like, we have a Super Bowl. We do the World Series, we do March Madness, you know,
yeah.
like they should be copying us. Like, why
Greatest
are we
country on
copying
earth,
them? It's
baby.
Well,
fucking
they
great.
want to.
We
They
have
would
college
really. I mean,
football.
the owners would really like for soccer to just be like the NFL. They want
Yeah.
a Super League, a European Super League. That's 30 teams, no ins and outs, no promotion, no relegation, probably some kind of draft, whatever else. The cartel makes so much more sense for the owners.
Yeah.
I go back and forth. You know, when I first got into soccer, I was like, "Oh, this is so great. The owners have to try, or they get punished." And like
Yeah.
little teams who did like the sort of money ball as a strategy still kind of exists, can exist. But then Tottenham have been so fucking bad lately. I'm like, I would love for them to tank and get a high draft pick. I wish that was like a possibility. I'd like them to do that a couple of years in a row.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
We can't. I'm sorry I brought it
Let's
up.
move
We
on.
cannot
Let's
turn
move
this
on.
into a soccer. We're not talking
Look, we
about
have a whole new
Tottenham
audience,
Hotspur
you know?
or
Like
whatever.
maybe
Yeah. No.
maybe they're gonna be more into sports for this, you
Yeah,
know?
maybe. Okay, but we had an informal agenda, and the next thing on our informal agenda was
This is the compact mag piece.
yeah, the compact mag, the Jacob Savage piece.
uh,
I like the comment saying thank you. Yeah.
Eleanor, you don't want
I'm
to hear
the
our soccer
I'm the
opinion?
moderator.
um,
Yeah, you want
should
to
I
hear some? Yeah.
should we describe this compact
Yeah,
mag?
probably now that
I
we
don't know
have
if people have
6,000 fucking people here.
there's
It was
this new piece by a writer named Jacob Savage, who is he claims in this essay like his main profession and the way he makes money is by scalping tickets, like concert tickets and stuff. And the piece is about being a white man in creative professions in a kind of broad sense. The story is like he wanted to be a TV writer.
TV
He was out in
writer.
LA. He like came really close to being in a writer's room and then didn't get it. And then the rest of the piece is also about journalism. He talks to a bunch of journalists who are about I'm 40, who are about my age, who
Right.
over the last white men like me, who over the last 5 years or so felt like their chances at rising in their professions were sort of quashed by the rise of diversity, quotas, whether explicit or implicit. It's all very, I mean, we've heard this stuff before. I think the move he makes it slightly different here is he wants to blame Gen X white men instead of minorities. It's sort of
A
like,
little bit
oh,
of
Gen
both,
X,
though, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit of. I mean, you
It
would.
was like,
It's
well,
not
it was
like
a clever.
magazine
I
people.
thought it was a pretty clever move, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Like,
disarming. It's a
it
little
did make it
disarming.
like I wanted to like just roll my eyes. I did kind of because it starts out with him talking about how he didn't get a TV writing job, and I was like, you know who else didn't get a TV writing job? Me, motherfucker. I'm
did you
not white.
was that an ambition of yours?
Oh, yeah, everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to make more money than I do,
Yeah.
and like do something vaguely creative and like, sit around and be like, get like lunch delivered and make 3 jokes and like, yeah, it sounds like a great
The
job.
writer's
That
room
was
as an
better than
institution. Yeah.
typing about like Kamala Harris, which is my current job. I guess not
Yeah.
anymore, but
Well,
but
yeah.
yeah, no, I'm sorry, Max. I didn't mean to cut off your
No, I mean, I think you're like it is a more interesting move to sort of be like, oh, these older white guys are like holding me back. But I also like, I mean, there's a lot to say. There's like a lot to say about this essay. We could talk about all the different parts of it. And I will also defend. Like, I didn't love this essay. I will defend Jacob to the extent that at the very end of the essay, if you make it all the way down, he does kind of come to the correct conclusion, which is like, oh, it turns out I'm not a great talent. I'm kind of a mediocre talent, and that's what life is, and that's what my life has
So
been.
what's
And
his
like,
point?
well, his point was that it used to be that being a mediocre talent who went to
Was good
Princeton would
enough?
be enough to like have the life he wanted, which was, in a touching way, which was to
Uh-huh.
have your children come to the set with you. I will say that I also had that vision, and when I directed a documentary, I had my child come to the film festival that it premiered at, and it was a very nice moment. But she was
Oh.
like, her conclusion was that the movie was too long and it was boring.
Uh,
But I did
yeah,
get some nice photos, like in
yeah.
my
yeah.
little, yeah. So and that was the whole thing, yeah. But I sympathize with him in that way, and I do think maybe he's correct in that way. And I do think in TV writing for a while it was pretty intense. Like at least that's what I would hear, right?
Mhm.
Even like as an Asian dude, they'd be like, "Well, we're not looking for Asian dudes," and I was like, "All right, like
Yeah, I
like
mean, my sympathy is limited here because he went to Princeton and he was out living in LA trying to make this happen. Like, Jay, like I know you wanted to do this, and you did in fact live in LA for a little bit, but like
right,
my impression for a pretty solid portion of the 2010s, not universal by any means, but if you went out there, if you had connections from going to an Ivy League school, which I would hope that that's the reason you go to an Ivy League school,
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
have a pilot. It takes a few years of networking, but like they were making so much fucking TV. And maybe you look down your nose at the stuff you get, which is like Netflix adult animated shows about a squirrel that's depressed and healing from trauma or whatever. And but that's a TV writing job. You take that job and
yeah.
you take it somewhere else. Like our friend Cord Jefferson's first job, I will never let him forget, was writing for LeBron James's Stars TV show. And when he started that, we were all like, "Oh yeah, he's gonna come back to soccer in like 2 months. That shit is gonna get canceled immediately." And now he won an Oscar and won't answer my phone calls. So that's a different story entirely. He it wasn't that hard to get in, and I have to assume that if you had all these other things going for you and you still couldn't make anything happen, like from what I remember, he really like he can't get any job. He doesn't seem like he gets any jobs at all. He doesn't even really get a sniff at it except for this one couple meetings he has. Is a little like you don't want to be like, oh, you should have tried harder, but you should fucking tried harder, man.
I
Gone to
know.
more
Well,
parties.
that
Like,
Well, you never know. It's a problem. Is there's an there's an epistemic problem with the whole conceit of the piece. Is that you just don't know. I mean, that drives you crazy if you are being
yeah.
discriminated against, and that sucks. Is that you just don't know whether or not this is reflective of your talent or that something else was going on, and everyone is tempted, depending on what their prejudices are, to say it's one or the other. And
Yeah.
also, what a lot of people pointed out, and I would say, as good materialists, we have to pay attention to is that, yeah, I mean, I do believe that some things were said to him that were probably true about diversity and stuff like that. But the conditions of employment in the media and creative arts in general are bad. Like
Yeah.
these things are falling apart, and it sucks. I mean, like, it used to be in our own. I mean, we talk about the golden age. We're all magazine writers, right? That used to be you would get paid $20,000 for a feature, and you would
Yeah.
do two, and that was when $20,000
It
was
was
a lot of
better. It was
money.
better than TV writing. If you were a top level magazine writer, it was a better job
Oh
than
yeah,
TV
it
writing.
was,
Yeah.
you could like expense every single one of your lunches if you wanted to, and you could go to like Aquavit or something. I don't know if that
Yeah.
existed back then.
Yeah, yeah.
Condé Nast would get you a mortgage. Like,
Right.
this is no big deal.
I mean, and that sounds very nice, and it
Yeah.
sounds very, but the conditions of employment, all these things is terrible, and like it may get worse because a big part of the strike of SAG-AFTRA and the other strike, was making conditions about what's going to happen when AI comes along. So I just
Yeah.
think that all these professions, and here's where I'm going to be a little bit of a Marxist about it, is like, why don't you stop attacking your fellow workers and turn your ire on the capitalists? Maybe they're lying to you. Maybe, like, so
Well, okay.
yeah.
But as Max said, during the time when he was out there, it was like the golden age. That was the golden age of TV writing, basically, in terms of opportunity.
Mhm.
And everybody who had a script, including many people that we knew, went out and did it. And some of them were very successful, and some of them just got like a couple shows. Some of them, maybe had one idea that got made, but either way, they had something of a career out there, and a lot of them still live out there.
Mhm.
Um, and so I think that the problem that happens with all of this is a similar problem to a lot of other things that happen amongst liberal stuff, which is that, like, when you are the one person who is willing to say this thing happened, right? Then you have an enormous amount of power, right?
Mm.
Especially if other people are not willing to say that this thing happened. And the thing that happened was that, yes, in these three industries, I do believe in academia, the things that he focuses on are academia, media, and Hollywood. That, yeah, they had a period of probably about 5 or 6 years, maybe, where they were trying to change their diversity numbers, and they really did not want to hire young white men. True, absolutely true. Like, I know it anecdotally, I know it from reporting, I know it from writing about it. This was true; it happened, right? And it probably benefited people like me. My co-host Tyler and I always joke about this, that, like, like, we probably just got our jobs during this period of time because of peak woke, right? And then but it's over, and
Yeah.
that's the part where I don't really understand why. It's like that period of time is over. Like, we're back to normal. And the one thing that happened is that, like, he points out that at some point the Atlantic's like editorial staff was like 90% white or something like that, or 92% white, and then it went down. And my sense is, like, all right, like, how do you get, if you are in agreement that a 92% white editorial staff is bad, right? Which I think a lot of liberals would agree with, right? Like, that it's not necessarily a reflection of meritocracy, but that in fact you probably want that number somewhere around like 60, 70%, and then people will be okay with it, right? Like, it's not, you don't have to have it be like 30% or something like that. But let's say you want to get from 90 to 70%, you kind of need to, like, do the thing that they did, right? Which is to
Mm.
say, okay, we can't actually hire young white men in this type of role. And that sucks, And the fact that it's very hard to come out and say, we're just not going to hire any young white men, right? And so then you get the power behind that of, like, well, no one's going to say that. No one's going to say that out loud. And I think some of the reaction to this piece is basically, and some of the other pieces that are like it, are basically people just who were frustrated, it's basically saying, finally, someone said the
Yeah.
thing. Someone said it out loud. And they don't really pay attention to the rest of the piece, right? Like, they're just happy that somebody said the thing out loud. Um, and so, like, I don't know, is there like a real power in saying the thing out loud? Sure. Like, should we have not, like, should the media have not done that? Like, I don't know. Like, I think that, like, it's hard to get diversity numbers to where they are without doing that. But at the same time, I just think that, like, we should probably have been a little bit more honest about what we were doing at the time, right? It's the same problem around affirmative action, where it's just like, all right, if we're not going to say that affirmative action tries to help kids get into these colleges, then why do we exist? Why does it exist, right? Like, if it's not about giving people a leg up, then what is it, right?
Yeah.
And that type of base, like, I don't know what you want to call it. Like, I think that dishonesty is probably a little bit too strong of a word, but like that kind of obfuscation around it. Um, it's still powerful, I guess, within our industry because everybody's talking about this fucking essay. But in my mind, I'm just like, and I tweeted about this morning, but like, the revolution failed,
Yeah.
right? Like, I mean, I like somebody like me or whatever, like, someone, despite the fact that this has 6,000 people watching it right now, yeah, which I'll just attribute to
They're all
myself.
waiting for us to
It's
talk
like,
about
Yeah, they
Venezuela
only came
too.
to talk to CJ.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Um, like we've like it's not the point where there was a period of time where I think that somebody like me or Tyler or somebody like that, like we could have picked any job we wanted in media and probably gotten it because we weren't white. Like that's just true, you know? And that's
But
not
Jay,
true
I mean,
anymore.
I don't want to put you on the spot here, but it's also your sense that because of the makeup of media, that you've been passed over for opportunities, or you've been not taken seriously too, right? Like, so there's it's not only that the jobs were available to you because they were making a concerted effort to be more diverse. Like you, I think I don't want to like put words in your mouth, but I think you've also taken a little bit of the other stuff and experience. Like,
Oh
yeah,
yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like back when it was all white dudes and, like maybe 20 years ago or something like that. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
there are no Asian dudes in media like
Mm-hmm.
writing about their politics ideas,
Look,
right? And so like
It's also, I mean, I just want to
yeah.
like, not that I don't understand exactly what you're saying, Jay, about, as like a broad, in aggregate dynamic that was playing out like in the last 5 years of the 2010s or whatever. So sort of under the first Trump administration. But this is also like in the specific, white guys were still getting jobs, right? Like it wasn't like it was an actual blanket. Obviously, nobody like wrote a memo that was like, no
he
white
said,
guys will
but
ever get a job.
he said, oh, well, here's the other thing is institutions are just changing. The importance of them are just changing. They're falling apart. He said at some point in this, and I was thinking about this because I was thinking about my own career. Look, I went to art school. I wanted to be a painter. It didn't work. I'm not good enough, frankly, in any world. It doesn't matter if it was the 1950s and it was abstract expressionism. I wasn't going to make it. And I kind of just got a job, and then I started writing about politics, and people liked what I was doing. And I never got an institutional job in in politics. I mean, in writing, like I wrote as a freelancer, and then I started a Substack.
Mhm.
And he says, "Oh well, the white guys have to do Substacks." Okay, it's not. Maybe I like. What's the harm? Like I have a great life because of it. It's wonderful. A lot of people read it. We're doing this now. We have all these people listening to us. Like the institutions are changing, and if you want to be a creative person, if you want to pursue arts and letters or whatever, then you also have to be like, well, sometimes there's always going to be a structural problem with the mainstream. Either you're being discriminated against or you're too avant-garde. And if you're an avant-garde, there's one of my paintings right behind me. If you're avant-garde, there, you go and form an underground, and you do cool stuff with your friends, and then sometimes people like that kind of burst out of those scenes and create something new. So it's just kind of like, if you're an artist and you're not getting mainstream recognition, then you find other artists and you create like your own scene. And like,
Right.
so and that's obviously, look, I understand as an artist, as a creative person, and I don't want to diminish this and say it doesn't suck. If you enter a profession that requires recognition and not just money, and you don't get any recognition, it's very painful. It's very painful to feel ignored. It's not, and that people don't understand your work or you're not important. It's extremely painful, and it's kind of soul destroying in a certain way. But
Yeah.
so I don't want to totally be like, look, this guy just needs to get it together. But I think very I didn't, I think like I did what I had to do out of necessity. And
Yeah.
also the other thing is like, I don't feel entitled to any of this. Like, I'm very grateful it worked out. Like, I was
Yeah.
just like, I started the Substack because I needed a little extra money, and I was very surprised that people were interested in it, and it's been kind of wonderful. And like,
Yeah.
would I have loved, like, okay, look, I would have loved to live in an earlier era where I got to work at Condé Nast when it was the golden era, and I would have an expense account and be flying to Paris and eating it at Maxime's all the time, and that's wonderful, and that life sounds great. Or just being in a Hollywood guy and having a house in the hills in the old days. It's not the old days,
Yeah.
like, and
Sort of. I mean, I
yeah.
just went upstairs and my dog is getting acupuncture done. That's
Look, Jay, you're on a
one
different level
Condé
than
Nast
us. Yeah,
employee here. New
yeah,
York the
yeah,
step
true,
right
true.
here. I went upstairs and there was an acupuncturist in my living room giving
You're
my
are
dog.
you joking?
No, I'm not joking.
Why does the dog need acupuncture?
Because he has back issues. 14 years old.
Oh my
I've
God.
That's why my wife gets acupuncture. Same difference.
been.
The
So the dog,
Your
the
wife
dog,
is 14 years old.
the dog talks. Like, how do you know it has back issues? He complains.
Yeah,
Like
he's
that?
like yelping around. I mean, like, what do you want me to do?
Oh,
But
that's
yeah,
horrible.
my dog's getting acupuncture upstairs, I've got like a
Um,
poster
Yeah.
Marks
So
back up. It's
apparently,
like,
I'm just there's a little bit of confusion in the chat. I know you guys told me not to pay attention to the chat, but apparently we got tweeted out that, or push notification that we were talking about the imminent invasion of Venezuela, which wasn't even remotely a plan of ours, and
Nope.
we're just kind of going. But we have one more. We have one more
Wait,
topic.
I wanted
Oh
to
yeah,
just throw
please.
one more thing out there while we're talking about Savage.
Yeah.
This is like a sort of basic left-wing point, but I think it's worth making, which is the other thing that's going on here that I think Savage needs to pay more attention to is like sometimes an industry has less one reason that an industry is doing better at like diversity hiring and has maybe like so quote unquote less room for white men is that it's no longer an industry that has a ton of prestige and remunerative power. And there's a sort of like there's an aspect by which, okay, we'll finally open the gates to anybody who wants these jobs because who gives a shit these days? And I don't think that is by any means like the only sort of explanation that has any power here, but it seems really plainly true with journalism that it's like only once journalism becomes a like wholly precarious, low paid, low prestige, low status job does it become a job where there is like a chance that that a white man might not get it, that there might be like more than just white men there. And I think it's less true of Hollywood, right? Obviously, that's still a pretty high prestige, high paying job, but it still is part of the dynamic. And I think like the final thing I'll say is I think to your point about people not having the like having to find your own scene and having to have some kind of self-confidence in your practice, in your art, in the thing that you're doing. I think that, this is a hobby horse of mine. Like, I think I don't know what the DIY scene is like for 14-year-olds these days, but I think that's one of the healthiest things that a teenager can get into is like teaching yourself and understanding that there is like a whole exterior world that you can build with you and your friends that will validate you and will support you and sustain you if you are an artist or a creative of any kind that has nothing to do with the mainstream, with the establishment, with whatever else you're worried about. And I think that, if you go to a school like Princeton, I don't know Savage from Adam, like whoever, I don't know what his deal is exactly.
He went to Princeton. I happen to know that.
I can very much imagine that if you go to Princeton and you have oriented your life around going to an Ivy League school and you go to the Ivy League school and then you graduate, you've lived like within a fairly, chances are you lived within a fairly narrow set of incentives, of prerogatives that you've like lived your life toward a particular goal. And once you get out of the Ivies there, you want to keep going up on that trajectory, but you maybe have never learned, you've never like developed the sort of psychological mechanisms that allow you to fail. Like you've never learned how to not get the thing that you want because you have always gotten it. And I can feel really sympathetic. That's obviously very difficult, but it's also like that's what life is. That is the most important thing you can possibly learn is how to not get the thing you want. I mean, I'm trying to teach my 5-year-old and I can see it when he wants peanut butter crackers for dinner and throws a 40-minute tantrum because he didn't get them. It's like, well, I'm preparing you for having a failure
that's
of a
the other
career.
thing. Also, there's reasonable expectation especially about discrimination, right? And there is reasonable expectation that for a job you're not going to be discriminated against and you should be able to sue. That makes sense. But that's different because that's like you're making it difficult for somebody to just make a living for themselves. They're not making any big pretensions or claims, right?
right.
But there's something different about saying when there is an aspect of recognition or fame or success in the I don't know this about the spiritual or moral content of what you're doing, you can't be entitled to that, right?
Yeah.
Like and yes, there are fashions change for not good reasons. Certain things become popular and fads, and it's not all rational. It's not all good, but it's very different if someone is like, I've been discriminated for a job and I'm good in this field and I just wanted to do my job at a basic level and do it okay. And I wasn't, that's different being like, I wanted a prestige career in which I was personally recognized for being an extraordinary talent. That is different. You can't say you've been really I mean, you can because, but there are many there are many people in the history of art and culture who fell on the other side of this, who may have been extraordinary talents and were overlooked because of because of structural discrimination. My mother's an artist who I think is a great artist, and she it was not recognized in her lifetime so far. I mean, God, things can still happen, and she's not writing a piece for Compact, being like, I'm a 75-year-old woman and I never got my art career off the ground, and I don't think that she would get the. Frankly, I don't. And there's a gender aspect to this too. I don't think that she would get the sympathetic treatment that or attention that Mr. Savage is getting. They would say, look at this old lady is complaining, like
I just
so.
say he's got to post the pilot. I mean, I know that kind of at the end he makes the movie. He's not complaining, but like if you're gonna do this, you got to post the pilot.
Yeah,
Like,
like
let's read it. Let's see what it's like. Let's see how bad it is.
Well,
Come on.
you should make
it's
it.
also like
You
I
should do
feel
a
like
web
there's
show.
this
Yeah.
it like the weird subtext all well, there's two things that are happening. The first is I just think that what has happened is that basically a whole bunch of people graduated from Ivy League schools and they came to New York or they went to LA and they found that the number of jobs that they had envisioned that were there for them were no longer there, right? And so like the shrinking of media is a large part about
Yeah.
this. And that some of those jobs are now given out to minorities and to women, right? And so um what you have is like a shrinking pool of jobs and you have a tightened competition within a very elite group of people. Like every single person went to Harvard or Princeton or something like that. And you just ask yourself, well, why not me? And that you have people who are very ambitious because the only thing that they've really cared about is this cultural type of wealth, right? And at a time when this type of cultural wealth means less and less, not just financially in terms of an annual salary, but also just in terms of what it can afford you, right? I wish it was the old days of
Yeah.
being a magazine writer.
Yeah.
I would live it up. Like they would like have
Yeah.
to call the IRS on my expense
Yeah,
account,
me too.
But
I was
like
just
I don't
saying
even
that.
have an
Yeah.
expense account. Like if I want to fly to New York, I can't even be an economy plus, they just put me in economy.
You can't
Put you
even
in the bathroom
it's
seat.
becoming so you can't even get business class anymore.
Yeah, no,
like,
business class. Are you out of your mind? Like
yeah.
I
Well,
literally
this is
cannot get
You're
funny.
lucky if
economy
you don't get
plus.
the seat next to the bathroom. They're
I
Yeah,
have
taking
yeah,
everything that they
it's
can.
unbelievable. And so like they uh and so it's kind of like, well, the only thing that matters now is the cultural prestige that's associated with your title, right? Even though that's declining, it's the only thing that you can really get out of it. And then it becomes like a war over titles and what that culture means. And I think that
Yeah.
essentially what has happened is that like the entire information economy around this type of stuff has shifted and that the public also has shifted their expectations, but the small group of people hasn't. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like if you ask people like would like people around here, especially here in the Bay Area, would you rather be me, right? And be whatever staff writer in New York, or would you rather be Max or John? I bet a lot of them would rather be you guys, right? Like, I mean, like you guys, especially if you just like, well, they all make about the same amount of money. Would you rather have the freedom to say whatever you want, or do you want to go like talk to some fact checkers and some editors, and then like be behind a paywall and be part of the lying media?
Yeah.
Like it's not as clear cut as it used to be,
Right.
and so while all this is happening, you just have this like decline in what it means, and then people just start freaking out. I mean, Elif Bachman wrote this great Substack. Another New York staff writer who went to Substack, she wrote this great Substack about like leaving, like the idea of like becoming a Substacker after being like a New Yorker writer for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's like, in some ways, it's like really, really funny. She's a very funny writer. She's one of my favorite writers, actually. And in some ways, kind of sad, because she's just like, well, what does this thing mean anymore?
Yeah.
And so I don't know. Like I guess in that sense, I'm just like, well, we're just talking about this very small group of people, and so it doesn't really matter,
I think I think it's worth it. Like, I think it does matter. The only thing I will say is, and this goes back to some of our earlier discussions about the conditions of information. It is. I don't want to be completely like, oh well, the content speaks for itself, and these institutions were just cultural snobbery. I do believe at one time, real knowledge of what was good in art and culture was embodied in those institutions, and they recognized people of true merit. That doesn't mean they also didn't ignore people. That doesn't mean they didn't have a lot of problems. But I do believe on some level the institutions had a rational basis and were and the degeneration or the loss of those institutions does create problems because it's not like in the absence of it, some pure meritocracy rides up. There's a lot of there's a lot of slop and trash that's gets popular. I mean, there's always, things that are. So I think having these kind of guardians of official culture, the loss of them is, as you were saying, Jay, there's something sad or ambivalent about it, because on the one hand, it does create incredible opportunities for people who may not have been fit into the look. I can write about it whatever I want. Editors used to be like, "That's too weird," and I'm like, apparently not. So,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
so liberating, though.
yeah, it is
Like
liberating.
it's better.
Yeah,
Like as a writer, it's better.
it's better.
I
It's
always tell
better.
people, like I mean, I make this joke with you guys all the time, but like the main benefit for me for being a New Yorker staff writer is that when I tell people, when people ask me what I do at a children's birthday party, I'm like, oh, I'm a journalist, and they're like, they always ask like, where do you work for? And then I'm like, oh, I work for the New
You
Yorker.
ever heard of the
And then
New
they're
York?
really nice to me for like the next 2 weeks. Every time I see them, they're
I
nice
have to
to
be
me.
like, well, I have a Substack
Like,
newsletter.
they're very in Berkeley, California, they're very impressed by that, that's
Yeah,
about
Yeah.
it, and
Yeah.
honestly, some of them probably are not, and they're just
right,
pretending to be, and
right.
that's basically it. I don't know, like, I mean,
Yeah,
like,
I
I
don't
don't wanna
get I
make
don't
too light of it,
the other
but, like, I
parents
do get a
don't give a
salary
shit.
and everything, but it's like, would I rather have the freedom to just write about what I wanna write about whenever I wanna write about it like you guys have? Yeah, of course, like, I
Yeah.
would rather have that.
Come on in. The water's fine, Jay.
We get 6,000
We got
My
viewers.
wife
6,000 people.
No, well, this has changed my mind. Apparently, I 10x your usual
Yeah, you
your
have.
usual
They
audience.
have to, but we have another topic which is related,
Oh,
which
yeah.
was which is
Are we
something
going to talk about Venezuela? I do have Venezuela takes.
we're gonna end with Venezuela, so we'll give the
Okay.
people what they want. Max, you want to talk about the New Yorker mag because this is
Well, no,
absolutely
it's a
related.
perfect it's
Yeah,
a we wanted the Barry Weiss piece in the New Yorker is a perfect segue from what we're talking about.
yeah.
Partly because it's like if you want to see the power of like going to LA with an Ivy League education and being able to hang out with people, like this is a story about how easy it is to convince Hollywood dummies that you're smart. Like it just doesn't, it takes, and I want to say this is my experience as well. Like it is a industry, I have my much more limited experience.
So why aren't you a
So
multimillionaire, Max?
that's a great question. I have a Substack.
I
Yeah,
know
that's
David
Max.
Ellison.
Max
Call
even went
me.
to college in LA.
Oh, you did,
Um,
yeah.
but this is a story about somebody who went out there and who was just a good hang and would go to these salons and I imagine like flatter the people she was talking to, not just by brown nosing them, but also by sort of talking about the news and like talking about her takes on current events. And my very limited experience on like calls and stuff with on Hollywood has been they're like one of the last groups of people in the world who are impressed by journalists and who are like interested in journalism and
Yeah.
value the perspective of journalists and stuff. And I can only imagine what that's like in the upper echelons if you're, Reed Hastings or whoever, like being talked to by Barry Weiss or whatever. And it was funny to read it side by side with the compact thing. It
Yeah.
has that real like this is what you should be doing. Like instead of you shouldn't have tried to be a TV writer, you should have tried to be a media mogul, basically.
Well, I think there's a lot to that. I mean, like, look, the article, but people have taken away from the article is that basically what Barry Weiss's talent was, she embodied a current of opinion that was shared by very rich people. And she made it seem like it wasn't just theirs. It was held by intellectuals, for the lack of a better term, although I don't think she really deserves that title. But, and yeah, she, a lot of people with a lot of money were extremely irritated with the way culture and politics were going. And Barry came along and went to their parties and flattered them and said, "You're totally right." And that's exactly how she got in his position, because they decided, because they echoed her, that she was a great talent and genius,
Yeah.
and actually their opinions and her, quite frankly, and I don't care about saying this, are pretty mediocre. And she and you can see now that she's flailing. So yeah,
Yeah.
you can go and network, but the rubber hits the road at some point,
Yeah.
because everyone can see what she's doing. And it is
Well,
not working out.
this is one of the things about Substack versus TV is we're talking even a huge Substack, we're talking a whole order of magnitude at least. Like, you want to add a couple zeros to a given Substack audience to understand what a successful TV audience looks like, and it just doesn't scale up in the same way. And if you're not thinking about that, and it's not really clear to me why all these people in the TV industry have not really been thinking about that, but I guess David Ellison is kind of a dummy. You end up in this position where you're like, well, this Substack, everybody's talking about the Substack and it's got 200,000 readers or even 2 million readers. And that's definitely going to translate into an audience that is going to be like a sustainable news audience. It just doesn't work.
They're not very professional. It's not like I write a newsletter. I have typos all over it. I can do whatever. It's not it doesn't encourage creativity perhaps, but not, it doesn't encourage professional rigor, which is like what an organization like CBS, for all its problems at the one time had, which was like, okay, they're going to be somewhat serious. Not to say they were perfect again, but
well, I would say in like having some experience. I lived in LA for a while too, right? And then I made a documentary, whatever. Like I
I'm
have
the only
some
person here who
experience in this
never
world.
lived in LA.
And I will say that the one thing that these studios and some of the people who run them do is that they have entire teams of advisors and they get like data and everything like that. And then they just ignore all of it and they just do something based on what they heard at a party or something like
Yeah.
that, right? Like they go by their instincts. And that's partially why they got to the places that they got to, because sometimes they're very lucky that their instincts are right. And then sometimes they actually,
I know, and in so many other contexts, I'd be complaining, "Oh, they're too cautious. They care too much about the
right.
numbers. They should follow their instincts." So I
Right.
should give them some credit.
They follow their instincts, and then it's just kind of what the last person at a party told them. And the one thing I think that happened that helped Barry in LA is that she came during a time when people actually were quite frustrated, just to bring this full circle, about the fact that like the only movies that were getting nominated for Oscars, for example, at that time were like stuff that, was like identity based or whatever, right? Like woke movies were the only thing that were getting celebrated. I remember this happening a lot in terms of like the documentary space too, where they're just like, why is it that we can't make a documentary about crime anymore? Oh, you can, It's like, why does it have to be all these hagiographies about old Black people, which, for a while, maybe that was true, right? There was a lot of that and that those things were celebrated. I remember Wesley Morris wrote that essay about how he didn't like the show. What was that show with Insecure? Right? Is that what it was called?
The
Yeah.
Issa Rae show on HBO?
Yeah, the Issa
I've
Rae
never read
show,
this
right?
essay.
And he was just like, I feel like I have to say I like the Issa Rae show, right?
Yeah.
Even though I don't like the Issa Rae show, I have to say it. That sentiment around Hollywood was like endemic. And I felt it too, right? I was like, I don't like any of these shows about Asian people. Why do I don't like, I still haven't seen Crazy Rich Asians, But like there was a period of time where you're just like, well, we have to support people and we have to change the culture or whatever like that. We have to pretend that all these things that came out are good. And that led to like a lot of frustration amongst Hollywood people. And I think that Barry came at the tail end of that and basically told them as a heretic, right? Like she brands herself as this heretic, saying like, I left the biggest news institution in the world because they were too woke and they were like promoting all these woke things. But I'm not like some sort of like person who thinks that we should like round up all the immigrants and put them in camps, right? I'm liberal. I'm the real liberal. Like these people aren't liberal. They've been brainwashed. I'm the real liberal who's willing to say real things. Again, there's a lot of power to that, right?
Again,
Like, there have been times in my
especially-
career where
She told, as I was saying, she told them what they very much wanted to hear.
Right. And but that was the thing they wanted to hear. And I think that, I've thought about this a lot where I'm just like, maybe I should just become the person who says those types of things, Sometimes I am, but like I should just like press it, But at some point I'm just like, no, but I do kind of care about some of the other stuff,
Yeah.
You have to be
but
pretty unscrupulous, and
you have to be unscrupulous. Yes, that's what it is.
You also-
You just
I mean, the
have to
thing is-
do it on purpose, right? You have
which
to do it
becomes
on
bad
purpose.
faith. Which becomes
You also,
bad
you
faith.
also you can't underestimate how awful these guys are for the most part to spend time around. Like your average like CEO or major executive or rich guy, like it just is really. That's not like a social circle that you want to spend. I mean, it would exhaust me just to have the thought of like
someone brought this up recently where they were like talking about, it was somebody with a magazine, worked at a magazine, and they had like a trustee who was a CEO, like went out to dinner with them or went to their holiday party, and like someone asked them even in jest, like, so what's it like being a CEO? And the person was so almost touched by that curiosity because they were like, well, actually, like no one's really ever asked me that. And I think they get a kick out of being around people who are writers, journalists, intellectuals, seem to care
Yeah.
about their ideas and think that they're smart. And
Yeah, that's so stupid though. If I was rich, the last thing I would ever do is
Re-
talk to one of you people, you know? I'd just be like,
yeah,
I just like, why would I talk to you?
yeah,
You know?
just
Like,
play golf and sail and
yeah, I
you know,
just play
yeah,
golf and with my other rich friends and then, you know,
yeah, drive around in a Porsche. I mean,
read the free press.
right, exactly. Read the free press, live in.
Sick. Yeah.
I think like the readership of this free press is like Westchester County, Beverly Hill, like it is like very concentrated in these wealthy suburbs of
Yeah.
major metropolitan
Yeah.
areas. The other thing I want to say about Barry Weiss is my perception of her is that, you know, okay, so she had this talent of flattering rich people. She has extraordinarily poor judgment and bad taste. So one of her big things that always annoyed me was, and look, she benefited from a lot of the backlash to her, who people went a little too wild about her and made her
Wait,
into
yeah.
it made her into the celebrity she is by doing that and appearing as a martyr. But like the whole thing she did with the IDW, the International Intellectual Dark Web, she elevated these people who were crackpots and lunatics and clowns.
Like
And
at the time, very clearly, you could tell. You didn't take a lot to tell
Yeah,
that
like
these
the
people were.
Weinsteins.
yeah, they sound like total morons. And I don't understand that she either is unable or unwilling to be discriminating enough to be like, you know what? It's not even about politics. It's not even about what they're saying is offensive. It's like these people are charlatans. They're clownish. It's a joke. Like, and she consistently brings people into the public sphere who have that, to my mind, have that profile. And it's not, and it offends my taste and more than my politics almost. I'm like, dude, that person is a joke. I would rather listen to someone who may offend my sensibilities morally or politically, but I can take seriously as a person. But that person is like an insulting to my intelligence that you're taking them seriously. Like, okay, Henry Kissinger, obviously a horrible person and politically offensive, but an interview with Henry Kissinger is definitionally interesting because he witnessed some amazing things in the 20th century and was like present in all these things. And he's a historical figure. It's a lot different than one of the Weinstein brothers or cousins or whatever they are. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not even about the politics. It's about the choice of people and whose voices are relevant and interesting. And I feel like, you know, we all,
feels
yeah.
dated, right? Don't
Yeah.
you think? It
Also,
feels
that's, yeah.
like I don't quite understand, like, you know, just putting aside all the sort of let's just say we're talking about her as an executive at CBS. Um and then what we've seen so far, which I can give a little grace. It's hard to launch anything, you know, and I haven't been that impressed
I
by
have
it.
no.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
But
I
like
wouldn't have interviewed Erica Kirk, but
it's
I don't know
hard.
what
I'm
I would
gonna
have
give
done.
her another month, right? But like you have this show
I'm
like
ready to call it.
CBS News Sunday Morning. It is a huge fucking show. A huge show, right? And it's basically like its brand is that everybody watches it and feels good and likes it, right? Like you watch these like segments about people doing good deeds and you feel good about it. And that everybody from like me to like somebody on the East Coast to somebody in Indiana, like who's 75 years old, they can all watch CBS Sunday Morning and enjoy it, right? Like it is like a very big popular show. And I'm just like, well, is she gonna touch that? You know?
Or 60 Minutes for that
Is she
matter.
gonna change it? Is she gonna
Yeah.
like yeah, my joke is always like, when is Coleman Hughes gonna be like the next correspondent on 60 Minutes? Like, is she gonna do it? Is she gonna like put like the people in her world, which is a very small world that focuses on one like, you know, on a very like narrow set of interests, is she gonna try and graft that onto these huge institutions that exist at CBS? My sense is that she probably will have the intelligence to leave most of that stuff alone. And that
Alright.
what we're going to see from CBS is like the stuff that she does personally is going to get surfaced on social media and it's going to make it seem like it's more of representative of the institution of CBS News than it is. Does that make sense? Like, I
That's a
just kind
kind
of
of a
feel like
I
she's
think
going to
that's
leave a lot of it
fair.
away. Yeah.
I think that it would be smart. That would be the right play, but I definitely think she's inserting herself. She did something. She did an interview. She's also not a good
Erica Kirk.
She's not a good interviewer. She's always really fawning with her subject. She's just
I
who
didn't
told her she
understand
knew how
her
to do
interview.
that?
Yeah, it
She's
was
not
very
fucking
weird.
Barbara Walters.
I mean,
Like
yeah.
so
Yeah. Or like
she
my personal queen Leslie Stahl,
someone's
right? Like,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
like you
Leslie
have
Stahl.
Leslie Stahl. Leslie
Well,
Stahl
you
is the
have a
greatest. Like she
horrific
nobody has
talent.
ever given a disapproving look to like somebody better than Leslie Stahl. When she interviewed Betsy DeVos, and she just kind of looks at her like, and it's just like it's so withering and amazing, and it's
Well,
just like, well, I don't know, just use Leslie Stahl. She's
per-
still there. Right?
perfect
It's like
example.
subbing out LeBron.
Look at her interview with Woody Allen. I mean, like, okay, this is again, you can maybe say, we don't, you might not like Woody Allen, but he's a significant cultural figure where an interview would be interesting. And she does two things in that interview. She is extremely fawning, which is, okay. That's probably how she got him to agree. And then she tries to recruit this 95-year, I don't know if he's that old, this ancient man to her anti-cancel culture agenda, and he barely knows what she's talking about. He's just like, well, I don't really know. I watch the Knicks on the television, and like it's so like she has this that's the other thing is like she is far too tendentious and partisan to undertake that role in a serious manner, because she's come at it, and the unsaid thing in this whole conversation is also Israel.
Mhm.
Her outlet and her entire career has been to advance a very tendentious partisan interpretation of what's going on in Israel and Palestine, and one that is increasingly, I would point, out of touch with American public opinion.
Mhm.
Even if you are not, out there in the streets saying river to the sea, I would say the average adult who is aware of the news is a little irritated, and maybe is still, with coverage of the issue that is plainly propagandistic and is not balanced or taking into account what's actually going on in every way. So I don't think it's going to resonate with people if you have a very tendentious and biased, take on that, because the population is moving in a different direction. Now, if they were a little more subtle and they said, we're going to cover this, straight up, and we're not going to be intimidated by the wokies in the newsroom, but, they might do their cause more good than
Yeah.
being straight up a propaganda mill. I'm sorry, if the prime minister of a country you're meant to be covering tweets your news story, you are creating, should look at yourself in the mirror. You are creating propaganda on their behalf that they're happy to share. Was it George Orwell said, if you publish something that someone doesn't want you to publish, then you're just doing PR.
Yeah.
Like if it's not something that, so I just think that in all of these dimensions, how tendentious she is, how poor her judgment is, which are related, by the way, because you can't see what's between something that's partisan and what's something that's real journalism. I just see it going over very badly with people, and looking amateurish, and taking, again, to go back to the whole thing of institutional decline, she's inserting the mob mentality of the internet, frankly, but except it's a ritzy mob because it's all these asshole rich
Elite
people.
mob.
Yeah, elite mob, asshole rich people and their opinions into what should be, and I'm not saying it was perfect ever, but at least in theory, should be an extremely staid, serious, careful, slow, old institution.
Yeah.
And I think that she's going to just totally ruin it anyway.
I hate to cut you off. I have a thing at 3, so I'm going to
Okay.
have to end the Substack.
Oh yeah, the fake university.
Did we not talk about Venezuela?
We
Venezuela.
didn't even talk about
Who knows what's going to
happen. We got 7,000 viewers, and it made them listen to us talk about media for 45 minutes instead of talking about Venezuela.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. John and I are going to put up this conversation on our Substacks tomorrow behind the paywall. It's been Jay Kang of Time to Say Goodbye and The New Yorker, John Ganz of Unpopular Front, author of The Year the Cock
Oh my God, Max.
Excuse me. Pause. The year the cock broke.
The year the cock broke.
Oh my God,
Tweet of
Max.
Reed Max, and we're just
Yeah.
gonna end right
John's
now.
John's-
Yeah, bye,
John's
guys.